Well, why don't we just go ahead and get started then? So I'll kick things off. My name is Caitlin. I am a registered dietitian with On Point Nutrition. So obviously, Nicole and I are going to be doing this webinar on leveled up desserts. So we're really excited to talk to you guys all about how to level up your dessert game. So Nicole, why don't you give yourself an introduction and then we'll just jump into everything.
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Nicole. I'm also a dietitian for On Point Nutrition. I'm excited to jump into this and get started and talk to you guys all about how to level up your desserts, what tips and tricks we can share with you.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to just kind of kick things off here. We're just going to kind of start by going through why would you level up your dessert? So if you want to kick us off, Nicole, go ahead.
Right. So we all know, traditional desserts are usually high in added sugar, refined carbohydrates, saturated fat. They can all contribute negatively to your overall health if eaten in large quantities. So cutting out dessert completely obviously is not realistic. It's not, stable. It's not attainable for us to do. Just in the long run, doesn't work. We know eventually we're going to eat that cookie or we're going to eat that donut. So usually we, do that, maybe cut out all those cookies, cut out all those things that we want that have the added sugar or the refined carbohydrates or the saturated fat, and binging them later after cutting them out for a long period of time. So moderation and balance is key in this. So what can we swap out for these added sugars or refined carbohydrates or saturated fats? Well, we're going to talk to you guys about that. So we're first going to start off talking about added sugar.
Yes. So one of the biggest things that adds up in terms of like desserts and traditional sweets is added sugars. And usually they are more like refined sugars rather than a natural sweetener. So some of the things that you typically will find in regular sweets and dessert products are cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, brown sugar, confectioner sugar, and icing sugar. So there's a lot of these different options that you might see on a nutrition label or some of your traditional desserts, or you might use them in baking. Some of the swaps that we like to do with our on point recipes and that we look for in different products are more natural sugars. So something like maple syrup, honey, using fruit as a way to sweeten things. I know that like applesauce is a really good one that's used to kind of like, as a moistening agent, but also like to sweeten things up. And lower calorie sweeteners like monk fruit. There is a disclaimer on that, which I will go through in a second. But the reason that we want to swap for these natural sweeteners is that the refined sugars cause a very rapid spike in blood sugar, which leaves you with a short burst of energy, but not long lasting, which kind of results in that crashing feeling. So longer lasting energy with the natural sweeteners and lower blood sugar spike, which is, great for people who are looking to control blood sugar, but really just the general population too. Monk fruit, however, is often blended with erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, which can give it, basically more of a sweet flavor. The sugar alcohols can have a negative effect on the gut microbiome. And I know for my clients with GI issues and IBS, I definitely don't recommend any sugar alcohols because they just aren't processed very well. So if you use monk fruit, just use it in small amounts and just kind of keep an eye on the GI effect. So the next one that we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Refined carbohydrates. So similar kind of to those added sugars and the differences in them. So we have our refined carbohydrates here. That's going to be your white flour, your bread flour, your white rice, those things that are kind of taken back. They take a lot of the outer seed of the, grain out of that. So it's very refined versus complex carbohydrates. So that's your whole wheat flour, your almond flour, your coconut flour, your oat flour. So the difference between these two is the refined carbohydrates tend to have lower amounts of fiber. They tend to cause a higher spike in blood sugar, which requires more insulin to control, much like those added sugars do. And they break down easier in the body. So they produce glucose faster, which means that you get a little more energy a little faster, but it doesn't last in the long run. So some swaps are these complex carbohydrates. So complex carbs are going to be higher in fiber. They're not going to break down as easily in the body, which means that you have longer lasting energy. And they, including more, complex grains throughout the day, helps control blood sugar and reduce spikes in your blood glucose and insulin, and the need for insulin, I should say. So making these swaps is super easy. They often have the same kind of consistency as this white flour, bread flour, white rice. But they're going to give you a little more lasting energy. They're not going to have as much of a, difference or as much of an effect on your blood sugar. And they're just going to overall, be a little more better to include in your desserts or your diet as a whole. So next, we're going to talk about saturated versus unsaturated fats.
Yeah. So the last ingredient that Nicole and I had talked about that really adds up in these dessert products is just saturated fats versus the unsaturated fats. So we always talk about, there's quote unquote good and bad fats. I mean, everything kind of fits in to a well-rounded diet, but the saturated fats are going to be the fats that increase your LDL cholesterol, which is we call it the lowly desirable cholesterol, standing for LDL, but it can negatively impact your overall triglyceride numbers. So when you're, getting your blood drawn and they're saying that you have high cholesterol, they're talking about that negative cholesterol that can negatively impact your heart health. So that is where the saturated fats are going to contribute to. And those are like butter, cow's milk, margarine, coconut oil, ghee, and palm oil. The unsaturated fats that we're looking to include are avocado oil, olive oil, nut butters, and avocado. Those can all be really solid replacements for these saturated fats. And they basically help increase your good cholesterol, your HDL cholesterol, which has positive effect on the overall triglyceride levels. I think we may have gotten a question in here.
Yeah.
So
the difference between peanut butter versus maybe another kind of nut butter. Different types of nuts have different levels of saturated versus unsaturated fat. So almond butter is going to be a little lower on that end. I know peanut butter is usually a little bit higher in saturated fats. I'm not sure about cashew butter. I think cashew butter is a little similar or more similar to almond butter. But in general, replacing a nut butter for a butter usually is a little bit better because I think of it as, these types of saturated fats like butter, like oil, are concentrated fats versus some of these unsaturated fats, they have more to them. So it's not just a fat source, it is somewhat of a protein source. You're getting a little more out of it versus just a fat.
Yeah. I know Zoe also said that she's used tahini as well, which is a really good substitution. Kind of falls under the same, a similar category to a nut butter because I think it's like a seed butter kind of.
Right.
But it gives I think it's a little less sweet in flavor than peanut butter and stuff like that. And that is a little bit better for some of those things that are you're baking something and it's not necessarily a sweet product. It's a little bit more savory. You know what I mean?
It's a very neutral kind of butter or taste, I guess.
Yes. But in terms of I can't believe it's not butter, I'm honestly not very familiar with that product. Do you know this off the top of your head, Nicole?
It is, I know it's more of a soy-based product instead of a butter dairy-based product. So there's a lot of, I think it's a little bit higher in those palm oils versus maybe just a normal dairy type butter is, but I'm not sure about the nutrient density. I think some of them can be a little lower in those saturated fats and have a little bit higher unsaturated fats, but we'll have to kind of look at that in the difference between, either or.
Okay. And Zoe's chiming in saying too, that it's a little bit more processed butter with less fat. Right. And then in terms of applesauce for a fat replacement, I think in terms of texture, that works really well. I'm not really sure. Honestly, I don't bake that much. So I kind of just follow the on point recipes as much as possible, but I have used applesauce in banana breads and stuff like that before. And it seems to work really well as far as just kind of binding everything in a moistening agent, but yeah. And then
I think remembering everything in moderation too. So there's a balance to everything. You don't necessarily, I think there was a question about limiting, all fats. You don't necessarily have to limit all fats. There are good fats and there are not so great for you fats, like these saturated fats that are going to cause, the LDL cholesterol to go up a little more. I think moderation and balance is key. So these are really great tips. If you're more of a dessert person and you like to have something maybe on a weekly basis that kind of curbs that sweet tooth, but you want it to be a little more nutrient dense, swapping this out for, swapping these things out is beneficial versus if you're going to go, to a birthday party and have cake. You can have a slice of cake. It's okay.
Yeah. If you go to like a very good bakery, you just enjoy it for what it is,
Right. It's about moderation and balance in that.
Yes. This helps you include these in your everyday life.
Right.
So those are all super great questions. But we're going to move on to this next slide here, which is just a comparison that we did between our On Point ice cream recipe and regular ice cream. So Nicole, you can kind of take this one if you want to go through it.
So our On Point ice cream is a frozen banana based ice cream. I don't know if any of you have made it before. I know a lot of my clients really like it because it has the same type of texture as ice cream does. It's very smooth. It's very, it usually blends up a little thicker than like a regular smoothie would, which is really nice because you want that ice cream texture. So the difference in that is this ice cream is made with mainly fruit. You can add a little bit of honey to it. You can kind of add peanut butter to it. It's very versatile where you can add in additional things to kind of spice it up a little bit depending on what you're in the mood for versus ice cream. This Breyers at the top ice cream is going to be counting as, 1 dairy and 1 fat just because of the fat content. And obviously it is, dairy ice cream. And then the Ben and Jerry's is obviously going to be a little bit more because it is Ben and Jerry's. So it'll be 1 fat, a starch because of the sugar content, and then, or 1 dairy, I'm sorry, a starch because of the sugar content, and then 4 fats just because it is a higher fat ice cream. So swapping, these out for the ice cream would be beneficial because you're getting a little bit more fruit in there. Like I said, it's super versatile. You can add in unsweetened cocoa powder. You can do peanut butter. You can add a little bit of chocolate chips at the top. You can do a lot of different stuff. And this is a really great swap for like an everyday sweet tooth at the end of the night if you want to have the ice cream texture, but you don't want necessarily to have ice cream every single night.
Yeah. I always tell my clients too, like, this is a really good option for like, I find that a lot of my clients have a hard time getting fruit in the winter because a lot of it's not in season. You can buy like chunks of frozen banana, like in the bag. And this is a really good option for like kind of 2 birds with 1 stone situation. Like you want something sweet in the evening, but you also are having a hard time hitting your fruit servings. Like this is the perfect way to get it in.
Right. Yeah.
So, but our next comparison that we have is hold on. It's not changing slides for me. There we go. Is yogurt bark, which is another On Point recipe versus traditional chocolate bark. So obviously 2 kind of different products, but I think they're pretty much, a similar thing in that, it's a bark, it's a little bit crunchy, it's got some flavor in it. So the yogurt bark is a recipe that we made that is a little bit lower in the starches and fats again. But again, another one that you can really switch it up. I had a client who melted down some peanut butter and like mixed it with the yogurt first. So it made like a peanut butter swirl yogurt. And then they put like fruit on top of it and stuff. So you can really make this in a bunch of different ways and just kind of keep it frozen in your freezer and pull out a piece when you feel like you need something sweet. But you can see comparatively, like we've got, 1 fat in ours, a fruit, a dairy, a condiment. And I think the real thing that people, at least I hear from my clients, is like, I want to eat my starches in like bread and like pasta and rice and stuff like that. Like they're like, I don't want to waste my starches on sweets. So this is a really good way to kind of get away from some of those higher starch and fat products. But yeah, so we'll just move on and kind of show you a little bit of comparisons. We won't spend too much time on this slide. You guys can kind of go back in the slides and look at it if you feel like you want a better view of it. But this is kind of just some comparisons that we came up with if you want to go through those, Nicole.
Yeah. So we obviously talked about like the banana and ice cream versus the Ben and Jerry's, the, berry coconut yogurt bark versus the regular chocolate bark. We have these raspberry chia seed black brownies that were just put on the website a couple weeks ago, which are great, versus like a regular Ghirardelli brownie mix. Obviously, like the difference in between this is the raspberry black bean brownies have a little bit more of those complex carbohydrates like we were talking about. So it uses black beans, which are a really great source of fiber and protein. It adds a little bit more to your dessert while still having that rich chocolate flavor. And it has raspberries on it too, which is also delicious. They mix really well together. And you're getting in a little bit more in that variety versus just a regular Ghirardelli brownie mix, which you're mostly just getting fat and sugar. Same goes with like the fruit crisp for one. It's different. It uses different types of flour. I'm pretty sure we use either oat flour or whole wheat flour to make the top with oats and some really great types of fruit, whatever you want to do, versus like a raspberry crisp. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit higher in those starches because it uses regular flour, it uses butter versus, you know, ours. And then the same going down the line with like the chocolate zucchini bread versus the regular chocolate cake. The chocolate zucchini bread, just like the black bean brownies, are going to be a little more nutrient dense because you're getting a veggie out of that too. It's not just that you're getting, you know, a dessert, which you are, but you're also getting a little bit more to it. So that's the difference between that. And then I really like to recommend our chocolate chip mug cake because it's super easy. You know, make it in the microwave. You can do oat flour, you could do almond flour, you could do whole wheat flour. It has a little bit of protein in it as well. I believe it uses protein powder. So you're getting a little more of a nutrient dense panel versus a regular chocolate chip mug cake that you would find at the store or make yourself with all those regular ingredients. It doesn't have as much to it. And then the apple nachos versus like apple and caramel dip, similar in like the sense of you're getting a fruit in, but the caramel dip, you're getting a little bit more of that refined sugar versus the apple nachos. You can kind of mix it up. You could do peanut butter. You could do like dark chocolate if you want to. That, you know, amount of sugar is a little bit different. And the amount of fat is also a little bit different too. So these are just some of our comparisons, some examples for you guys to kind of take a look at and think about.
Yeah. And I think something to remember too is like looking at these, like the targets are not astronomically different from each other.
Right.
Like if you eat one of these things that, you know, we're comparing it to, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that that's what we're kind of getting to is like the targets might be pretty similar, but the quality within that food is drastically different. And I think that's what is important to remember is like, even if you're getting, you know, a starch and a fat from this product and also a starch and a fat from this product, the actual like bones of that product are going to be completely different in terms of like nourishment. So I think that's something to take into consideration too, is like, while you might be hitting your targets from these things and they might fit into your targets fine, the, you know, impact underneath the surface is going to be different, you know?
Right. The nutrient density is a lot different in one compared to the other. You're getting a little bit more of those fruits and veggies in there and whole grains in one versus the other. You're getting a little bit more of those refined grains. And it's okay to have both, you know, it's okay to mix it up, but more so on like a realistic, maybe daily, weekly basis, switching that up a little bit and adding in some of these recipes that might have a little bit more of that complex carbohydrates, you know, those different types of sugars might be beneficial for you and your goals.
Right. And that brings us to nutrient dense additives, which another thing I was going to say is like all of these things that we're talking about adding and replacing and, you know, swapping out. The point is to obviously like, you know, nourish your body in a little bit of a better way. But like the other part of it too is like, you know, when you are sitting down, you know, after dinner or whatever, and you want, that's usually when I want my sweets. So, you know, obviously you can have sweets midday, breakfast, whenever you want, but that's usually when I want my sweets. But when you're sitting down and you're like, you know, going to eat a sweet, it's the worst when you like eat something sweet and you're like, I'm still not satisfied. Like the ones that we're recommending in these nutrient dense additives are going to make you more full from that product as well, because of the way that it affects your blood sugar and everything like that. So, you know, the worst is having it and being like, I need more of it. I need 2 portions, you know? So I think being able to get more bang for your buck out of these is important too. But nutrient dense additives, some things that we came up with, and these are things that like, you know, we've talked about already, but these are things that we try to add to our recipes, the on point recipes, to make them a little bit more nutrient dense. And some of them are nuts and seeds, which are a really great fat component, fruit, veggies, protein powder to add a little bit more of satiety and, you know, protein in there if you feel like that's something that you need for the day. And Greek yogurt, again, another really great protein source. It's got the probiotic effect. So lots of really positive things in there. And then Nicole, you are the quick dessert queen, so you can just take this one away.
I love me some quick desserts. So we have a couple here. We have a couple store-bought things, like the Yasso bars are really great because they're Greek yogurt bars. They have the same kind of consistency as like a fudge brownie or fudge pop bar, but they're going to give you more of that nutrient density because it's a Greek yogurt. It's going to give you a little bit more protein. Kodiak cups are also really good. Kodiak Cake makes, obviously they make like higher protein pancake mix and waffles and that kind of stuff, but they also make like little, almost like the chocolate chip mug cake kind of thing, but they make them pre-made in cups and you just have to add water or milk. So they're usually a little bit higher in protein, a little bit more dense. I think they have like a chocolate brownie one right now. Dates and peanut butter are also a really great go-to. Putting a little bit of like crunchy peanut butter or regular peanut butter in a date, dipping it in a little bit of chocolate, maybe sprinkling some sea salt on it, level it up a little bit. That's also really good. Yogurt dip with fruit. I actually made yogurt dip for our little webinar today. So I did Greek yogurt. I mixed it with peanut butter, and then I just put a little bit of mini M&Ms on top, and I have it with apples. So I'll be having my snack afterwards. And that's a really great way to get a little bit more protein and get a little bit more of those really great nutrient dense additives like those fats. And then solely fruit jerky is 100% fruit. It is similar to like a fruit bar, but they have different flavors. I think they have like a mango chocolate one. They have a mango pineapple one. They have a coconut one. They're interesting. They're really good. And then an Unreal is similar to that. And then the That's It fruit bars, the chocolate covered dry fruit, are also similar. So they're kind of in the same scheme of those like almost like healthy, what are they called? Like fruit by the foot.
Fruit by the foot. Yeah.
Right. Like
what a throwback.
A better version of like fruit by the foot. But
unfortunately they don't unroll like the fruit by the foot does, because that was just the coolest. But
I know, that was the best part.
Yeah,
like the little tattoos you put in your tongue.
Yeah, the tattoo ones. I forgot about that. But the Unreal, I think, is like I think it's like healthier versions of like your favorite kind of candies or something like that. So that's a pretty good option as well. I think we got a question in here. Oh, M&M's another candy. Yeah, from the Unreal brand. Yeah, I think they have like, I think I saw that they have like a mock like Reese's or something like that. So I think that's more of what you're getting with the Unreal brand. But yeah, those are definitely good ones for sure. Right. So next we're going to just talk about like tips for fitting dessert into a healthy diet. Because like we said, it's not the greatest to be eating, like the same thing all the time in any food group. And that goes for dessert too. So I think this is just kind of, fitting everything in moderation, making sure that you're balancing everything out well and, kind of getting enough variety to fuel your body properly. So like I said, everything fits in moderation and balance. Making some easy swaps for like those added sugars, saturated fats, refined carbohydrates. Those can make it a little bit easier for you to incorporate these things on a more regular basis because they're fueling your body in a completely different way. And then obviously level up your desserts by making them more nutrient dense. You can add in fruits, veggies, protein sources, really whatever you like. But again, I think this just kind of goes with like, the same mantra that we always have, like, all foods fit, all food lives on a spectrum. Like, you might have one thing from like this side one day, one thing from this side the other day. But I think it's just important to be mindful of like how often you're doing anything, how often you're including, the same sorts of foods. It's really helpful to switch things up and just look for nutrient dense additives where you can. But yeah, that's pretty much my spiel. I think that's pretty much all we've got, aside from we made some sweet treats and we kind of want to run through them and just show you guys what we have. But we'll also just accept some questions now. So if you guys want to send anything through, feel free. But before this call, made I don't know if you can see them, the nut butter snack bites from the portal. I made them with like oats, peanut butter. I didn't have cashew butter, so I just kind of doubled the peanut butter, some honey and some mini chocolate chips. So that's what I have for tonight. I'm going to stick them in my freezer and make them almost like cookie dough balls. But that's probably one of my favorite portal recipes for sure.
Yeah,
But
that's a good one.
what did you make besides your yogurt dip?
I made a yogurt dip with the mini M&Ms, which are my favorite part. And then I also made dark chocolate covered strawberries. So I have like 4 little strawberries. All I did was I just had dark chocolate laying around, melted it, dipped it, let it go. That's it. Pretty simple. Usually there are some recipes that call for like coconut oil to be added or some type of oil to be added. I don't find that you really need that, especially if it's a dark chocolate. I think that if it's already in like a solid form before you melt it, it's going to go back to a solid form after, you know.
Yeah. I think the key is to not overheat it too, because then it starts to get like crumbly.
Right.
Dairy-free chocolate covered strawberries are my go-to dessert. Oh, that's my client, Gina. Hi, Gina.
Gina knows it. She knows what's
up. I know. And those chocolate covered strawberries are very on brand with our February self-love month too. Love that.
We're coming to the end of February. I have to finish it off correctly.
Yep, exactly.
So that's what I have tonight.
Yep, romantic chocolate covered strawberries for you and you only. I love it. But that sounds good. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to send them through. And of course, like, send any questions to whoever you're working with on the team. Or, you can follow up with any questions, I'm pretty sure, to the email that was sent out. But you're also going to get some materials after this. So thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Caitlin. It was great chatting with you guys tonight. And Nicole, if you just want to say goodbye, feel free.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you found what you wanted to get out of it. Remember, balance and moderation is key. It's okay to have a regular brownie too, but swapping these things out for a little bit more nutrient dense options are always a plus, and we always encourage that. So,
oh my gosh, we are getting so much love in here. You guys are so sweet. I know. Zoe said off to eat my dessert. Me too. Yeah. That's what I will be doing after this. Me and this big bowl of nut butter snack bites.
Send some my way and I'll send some strawberries your way.
Yeah, we'll have to do a swap.
Yes.
All right. Well, have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everyone.